Going to go over today preliminary design and fabrication of a new platform. To start this out, we'll do the corners here real quick. Put in wherever there's a screw hole, we put a little dab to help seal up so that when the plastic's on top, it hopefully won't draw any air in. The next stage here, the bases are ready. This one looks a little more complicated because this is the one where I've got to make sure that these are not in the way of the air hose attachment flange. Basically, I've marked the center where that's going to be at. Then I marked those little mark there and a little mark there. The overall basically diameter of that piece. I'll show you one of those. And where that's going to fit to make sure that it doesn't run into this when we attach it. And then we've marked how far in that little ring is, so to make sure we get this positioned far enough away that the bolts that we put through are not going to hit any of this or that extra little ring inside, this made out of this material. So at this point, I've got it figured out that we're just going to kind of, I don't know, eyeball it, but just get it roughly in the spot. What we'll do is we'll go back to the drill press. We'll overlap them like this, clamp them together. We'll move this so that we know that these holes are going to be within outside of the area that we don't have to worry about anything running into things. And we're also still not too close to where that flange is going to be attached to. And we should be good. It may be a little crooked when they're mounted, but we don't need to be perfect for this. We'll just get it pretty rough on there and ready to go. And then once we've done that and confirmed that the feet are all fitting on, because when I made these feet originally, there was a problem with, this is the good one where they're kind of positioned where I needed them to be. But there was another one, there was a problem. That's why this one doesn't look very uniform, spaced apart. So like I said, we'll use this as the guide to cut the holes for one side, and then we'll switch over to this side and cut the holes for the other side. And we'll do that to each one. We've got this one marked to center too, where north flanges. This one, I don't need to worry about so much other than this, spacing in here. I'm gonna have to measure that out. I don't need to worry so much about getting too close to the flange at all there. So that's good. In fact, we may even just we may get some longer bolts, and we may even go through this area here to get down to where the leg attaches. I don't know if it's going to matter too much, so we may attempt that. We'll see. We can probably put it in here and be just as good with it as well. So we'll see you at the drill press in a little bit here. We're back at the drill press now, and we're getting ready to use this other mold platform as a template for our cuts. We've kind of eyeballed things in underneath, no exact real measurements. We're just hoping to get everything exactly right so that 2x4 foot is got clearance for the drill holes outside of the area of our little donuts sort of thing. And we put the waste piece back inside so that we can use it as a waste board, kind of like we did here. Actually, we were doing something, so that when we go to drill, we drill into the waste board on the other side. And as you know, or some of you may not know, MDF, it's pretty likely to chip out on the other side or break out on the other side if you don't have a waste board to go into. So that's why we put it back in there, so it'll drill a little ways into that, and it will look nice, clean hole like it does on this side, and we won't have it, busting all out and everything and looking ugly, especially since we're going to be putting in screws in from the other side once to mount the foot and everything. We want that to be nice and neat. So here we go. Got the other side done. This one we could have done a little bit better on. We're a little too close for my liking over there. We'll have to deal with it. We'll have to live with it. We might have to try and remove some material here of this little outer ring to have a better fit. But yeah, it's not so bad. It's not great, but it's tolerable. On to the bigger one now, and on this one we've actually marked, it's hard to tell, but there's double lines. This is where the 2x4s, we'd like the 2x4s to kind of land at. So this one will make it a little easier to line up the holes with the template and get them in the position we really want them at. All right, there we go. We got the second one done. Just don't look down here where I realized after the first hole, I was trying to drill the same hole pattern on both sides, which would not have worked since each leg is unique for the bottom of these to be attached. So I had to stop what I was doing, flip everything around, reclamp it, and then drill out. I think that's the correct hole. And this one I'm covering up is the wrong hole. So yeah, we'll have to get some filler and fill that one in, because that one's a bad one. We don't want that. Whoops. Hopefully my dad, who's a retired practical arts teacher, is not watching this, because he would be shaking his head, I'm sure. Hi everyone watching this video. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to quickly say that if you've watched any of our videos before, you probably know our business is not doing YouTube videos. It is actually selling RC car bodies. So if you're watching this vacuum forming video and you like the content and you want to see more of it, please consider subscribing to the channel. We don't do any sort of Patreon thing. We don't want any money from you at all, unless you want to buy some of our RC car bodies. But by you subscribing or even probably liking the video, it helps us get our video recommended to more people, and hopefully it gets more brand awareness for our RC car body business. And then if we sell more RC car bodies, we can afford to take the time to do more of these type of videos, which there is quite a few I would like to do if time allows in the near future here. So please subscribe, and thanks a lot for watching. Next step is now to figure out where we're gonna put the holes for the T-nuts for mounting this. On this one, because we put this extra space in and we're making the board that goes in here very tight in tolerance with the wings, we're most likely gonna have to put, I think the way it's gonna have to work is that we put the mounting screws, instead of 4, we're gonna use 2 mounted, one there and one there. We'll attach this to the base. I don't think it's going to be a big deal. These are not going to be under a lot of stress pulling the plastic off these. There's not going to be a lot that's going to hang up on these. These don't have deep undercuts or anything like that. So there shouldn't be too much stress or anything like that on the form trying to rip it, you know, off or anything like that. So 2 should be probably good enough for this. What we might do to compensate a little bit is we were using 6/32 size screws on the old ones. We may go up to a beefier size like we use on this, which is 12/24, I believe. I think this 12/24 for the mold fasten on these. We may just do that. 2 of those, one there and one there. We've got all the stuff we need to do that, so that's not too difficult. And then on the smaller one over here, we should be able to put them in the corners, and we may just go with the 6/32 for those and be done with it. So that's the next step. Get these in, and then once we get that done, it'll be the flange hole. So yeah, we're got that. That's all set and working great. So same thing on this one. We'll figure out the screws for mounting the board to this. Shouldn't be too hard for this one because we have lots of extra space on this one. Oh, I should also mention, we haven't countersunk these holes yet. I'm even debating whether I'm going to do it, since countersink is to get them out of the way in this style over here, but since we have this big gap here, countersinking them isn't really that big of a deal. They can stay exactly where they're at and they're out of the way. Then of course we got that, we talked about that mistake I did. We got to fill in that hole because we don't want air being drawn in through that between the bottom of the platform and the leg. So we've got to make sure we fill that in before we get too far as well. All right, well, I forgot to kind of see what I was doing here, but I've drilled out the mounting holes in the corners of this. This is the one, of course, that came out of the middle of this part here. This is flipped upside down. We drilled through these marks on here, through the other side over here, into our wasteboard. So we had nice clean holes over here. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to put in a T-nut, but we're not just gonna put it in flat like that. We're gonna use, hopefully, roughly a good size Forstner bit to recess it a little bit in there so it's out of the way. So then when we mount the feet on here, which is I think this hole right here, then this will be out of the way and no big deal then. And it'll actually probably help hold that in place. But we will probably put some glue, some sort of glue or adhesive in the spot too to help hold this in place for this one. The leg being in this spot right here will keep it in place. Normally I would put a screw on top of this, but since we're going to be covered up by the leg, I think it'll be okay. It shouldn't back out then. As long as we don't go too far in with our Forstner bit, we'll try and get it as close to flush as possible. There we go. T-nuts inserted into it. Nice, good flush fit on there. Like I said, the only thing I'll try and find some, we'll put the screws in as close to about the end as possible. And then I'm going to use some wood glue, hopefully, or something like that to kind of maybe seal it up just a little bit. See if we can make them stick in there just a little bit better. But this is also was done with some fairly loose tolerances. We used a much bigger bit than we probably needed to for these screws, but that's to make sure we've got plenty of wiggle room to get things precisely lined up, because none of this is tight tolerances at all. When we were cutting this, we're a little free and loose on stuff, so we want to make sure we have the most forgiving design we can possibly have to get this put together properly when we want to make stuff. And now we'll move on to the larger one. This was the smaller one. We'll move on to the larger one, same steps basically, but I'm going to be using larger T-nuts on that one. We'll be using 12-24 T-nuts for that one. All right, for the next one, the larger one, we've got the 2 mounting screw holes marked that we're going to do on this one. But these are going to be, like I said, the larger screws. There's a mark there. There's the other mark there. We'll switch out the Forstner bit. We'll put in our larger bit there. Drill completely through the 2 of them. Then we'll attach the T-nut on the back. I've actually got, what is it? There's the T-nuts I'm going to be using. Notice how those are pretty tall compared to, let me reach over here, grab this one. We're going to do this one so that we've got more threads available and we don't have to potentially use as long a bolt to connect things up. This is a problem with the smaller ones for sure. You have to use longer bolts to reach through all the wood and everything. This will hopefully mean the bolts we have on hand will work just fine. There we go. There are the T-nuts installed for the other one now. That should be good for that. Now we need to do the hole for the flange, air evacuation and everything to go. That, I gotta go find my hole saws. I'm not sure where I put my hole saws at. I may end up just using one of my really big Forstner bits to try and completely drill through it if I can't find the hole saws. There's somewhere actually in this same garage is my hole saws. Yeah, I hope I find them. Here we go. Hey, we found the hole saw. So we got that hole drilled through. Now we just got to get a flange. I've got to go, I think, make a run for a flange. I may have one I can steal off of some old box that was used for a pre-stretch at one of the first places we had bodies done, but I'm definitely going to need, I think, the second one first. So I may just get totally brand new ones and attach those. And then we should be pretty much all ready to go and start running stuff on it next few days once we have the stuff hardened up to seal those holes up and seal the backside here of it. We should be good to go. Hooray. All right, I went and saved big money and got these flanges. And I will warn you, if you're out there buying stuff like this, always check, go into the store and put they're wrapped in a little plastic bag, but if you get the bag wrapped around it as flat as possible and go set it on the floor first and make sure it's pretty flat. This one's got a little bit of a rock to it, but there were ones at the store that were very much worse. They get these forged and cast and everything, and they tend to have a pretty big warp to them because they were not cool, very cool before they put them out of the casting form and everything. This one's got a little bit of a rock in it, but it's not terrible. This one over here is really, really, really good. But there were ones that were way worse than even this one. So, and this one, when you set it over here, for some reason, doesn't seem to really rock as much and everything. But yeah, that's something to watch out for when you're buying these. Make sure you get ones that are nice and flat. Otherwise, you can end up with having to really have a good gasket type seal, you know, a lot of filler in there to get a good seal and everything on it. Can't put it just a thin coat down. So now that we've done that, then we'll come in with some wood screws and put those right in. We'll put a little pilot hole, start those so we don't screw them up too bad. And we're all set for that then. And a little of the gasket seal, of course, like I was mentioning, will be added around here, around this perimeter right in here. Attach it to it, and we are all set. We're back at the home office, and we got the first wing mounted on. But I wanted to show you, this is how much thread we're going to try and have going into everything. This is countersunk, basically, on the other side. Enough for sure. These are 1-inch screws, so enough with the washer underneath them and everything to get the head sunk down below the surface level of it in here. And some of the other screws we have are going to be 7/8, so we'll have to put this probably down a little bit more to stay consistent with that amount of thread exposure. But that's about how much I think is a good safe amount to have. You don't want much less than that, otherwise you risk the threads pulling out. So we'll continue on here and get the next one mounted up. Success, both of them mounted on just fine. We have already done the air evacuation holes for underneath the forms. We haven't done the ones around the edge yet. Now that this is shown to be successful and worked and everything as far as getting mounted on there, we will drill these extra air evacuation holes on here and then attach these back on again. We'll have to remove these and then put them back on again. All right, this is what the back side of the board looks like. You can see there's some ugly spots there where the drill went through. That's usually the case with the smaller drill bit. So we'll come through with this and do a little countersink thing on it. I just lightly touch it to smooth out and the rough edges on the corner. It makes it look much nicer. Plus, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that if you round off, or at least, you know, don't make the edges on a passage for like air or liquids as squared off, you have less turbulence and you get better airflow, or liquid flow. But at this scale, I don't know if it really matters, but we're gonna do it anyway, just because it mainly cleans up the edges on that to make them look a little nicer, and there's less particles potentially getting sucked and thrown around wherever when you're trying to form stuff. Those look much nicer now. So this board is ready to go. We'll get the forms attached back to it again. And this one will be ready to go. This is the larger one. We'll get the smaller one ready. I'm not going to show a bunch of that one. It's the same process, just with smaller sheet size. Real quickly, the finishing work we did on these, what size stuff, everything used. This one isn't really super important, but this was this 15/32 for the air escape holes. We put 2 in. I'm not really sure which size this countersink sort of bit is that we use for the back of the air escape holes. Then we've got 7/64 for the air escape holes, and then 8/64 for the mounting for the 440 screws, and then a 1/4 Forstner bit to countersink those into the wood so we get enough threads up through the hole to mount into the forms. So those are the general sizes that we used. Okay, so that takes care of part 2. I think for the most part, this is going to seem kind of weird maybe, but if you're paying close attention, but this video was actually, this portion right here was actually shot over a year after what you just saw, and in part 1. I just took a long time to get it all finished, had a lot of other things to go on. I had more hair probably back then when I shot that. I didn't have a new baby when I shot that, so it's a lot of things have changed since then. The new platforms, outstanding success, have worked great so far. If you've paid attention in some videos we've done over the last year and 3 months, I think, around in there, you may have actually seen some of this stuff being used. We introduced products that definitely used wings that were formed using this. One thing we didn't do is we didn't use the little brown, dark brown material in the middles here because it just wasn't necessary. These boards just didn't deform under vacuum pressure. It wasn't needed. If we'd chosen thinner material Probably would have had to done it, but we didn't have to. One thing too, the bolts we put through for the flange were a little on the long side, started to come through on the other side, but I think what I did on this was I just grabbed some screws that were available on hand that I had in the shop, and I didn't have to go purchase them, so saved some money on doing that. So let's go over the platforms we kind of have here real quick. We've got, of course, the bigger platform. We did 2 different boards with molds on it using this. This one had some issues with webbing because the heat of the plastic and everything started to web up in here when you got it hot enough to form correctly over on the sides. So we moved the molds further apart, and that took care of that. Little bit of struggle there at first, but came out perfect. This one here came out really well. We did a slow motion video a while back that had this actually in it, and we showed that we had to use a web catcher just briefly here till we got the settings tweaked just right, and then we didn't actually need the web catcher at all like I thought we might. It would form just great. Didn't have to move it like we did that over there. So those are the 2 that we have right now that are using the larger platform. They're really good sized parts. Well, that wing and then those 2, that other wing is it doesn't necessarily need that. And then we have this one over here that actually is for the same as that other wing. We've never used this one because we're not selling enough right now to justify it, but we made a lot of extra boards like this for mountain stuff too for the future use. Then we've got all the smaller ones, and we've got wings that reproduction ones we've run for a while that we moved from our single platform onto the dual. Got the web catchers in the normal spots. Everything's great. This one has a note that we use a fast vacuum on it. So we open up the vacuum valve all the way so it sucks down really quick when it engages for best results. Normally we don't always do that. We want a slower pull to reduce webbing a little bit, but on this one we found that we needed that. I think the issue was kind of that the plastic was cooling a little too quickly, and so it wasn't forming as well in certain spots if you didn't get it really quick. This one, web catchers, didn't need web catchers on this, but we had to put one kind of in the middle here because stuff was webbing up here, and I believe that's because of the height difference between the 2. You had this side stretching a lot more than this side, and so then you had stuff webbing up there. This just had web catchers on this one, nothing on that. That formed really easy. Same thing with those web catchers. These spoilers didn't need any sort of web catchers because they're very low profile. I think we had a little bit of trouble at first. You can kind of see from this protective cover, which I lost. The other one was so loose on here. It fell off as I was grabbing this and went underneath the shelf somewhere. I think we had to tweak around this to get it just the right temperature there for a while. It was, it actually seems odd, but the shorter something is, generally, you almost have to get it hotter to get it to form just the way you want. It's kind of seems opposite of what you'd think it would be. Then we had one that was a complete failure, and that's because it wasn't wings, it was gear covers and 3 different height designs. Got 2 shorter ones and then 1 tall one. And once again, what happens is if you're trying to do multiple parts on something, you frequently run into a problem that one forms really good, and then like these might form really well, but then you've had to get the plastic so hot because these are shorter to form really well. Now there's plastic is too stretchy and it webs up on the much taller slipper gear cover that we had that was mounted right here. We even tried spinning it around. You can see all the outlines. That didn't work. So we'll have to revisit this at a later time. There are some other tricks to play around with trying to control the heat, but I just didn't have time to mess with it and moved on to back to the old stuff method of doing it until I have time to really play around with it some more. It's just a matter of you either have too much plastic available to you because everything's really warm, or you don't have enough to get other parts to form. And that is the struggle when you try and increase your productivity by doing multiple parts at once when you're doing vacuum forming. And if you've done anything vacuum forming, you know that the middle is where you get the best plastic that's going to have the most heat stretched to it. And if you don't have anything right over that spot for a mold, it tends to cause problems then. Then you have excess plastic in the stuff that's on the outside and not enough heat necessarily maybe on the stuff on the outside. And then, oh yeah, this one you probably saw in the video. This was an old parts tray. We just did mess around with styrene for the first time in the shop. This one, no problem, went really well. Piece of cake. Yeah, so that should take care of that. I think what I will do right now here as a kind of closing thing to the video, I will play the video probably here that we did of this one, so you can get an idea how things form. Thanks for watching and have a great day. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Bye-bye.